The person I'm talking about today can be described as someone truly insane, in every sense of the word. The things he did and the beliefs he followed show that he wasn't just a little crazy, he was completely out of his mind. Our story begins in June of 1981 in Illinois, USA. The nightmare started at a hotel in Illinois. The hotel staff called the police, reporting a foul smell filling the halls. To be honest, they could tell it was the smell of a decomposing body, but they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. They searched around but didn't find anything, so they decided it was better to let the police handle it. When the police arrived, they started following the smell, which led them to a field behind the hotel. What they found there was shocking. The body of a woman, her hands tied. The woman had clear signs of abuse and was severely disfigured. The officers noticed something strange about the body. A body part was missing. To be more specific, her left breast had been removed entirely. The police were baffled. Why would someone take such a part of the body? They sent the body to the coroner's office for an autopsy to figure out how she died and to identify the woman. After conducting all necessary tests, the coroner confirmed that the woman had been dead for 3 days prior to being found. Furthermore, she had been assaulted multiple times, even posthumously. The woman's identity was revealed through dental records and fingerprints, and she was identified as Linda Sutton, a 28-year-old woman. Linda had been reported missing just a few days before her death. Since the coroner confirmed that she had died 3 days before being found, it meant she had been alive and enduring torment for about 7 days. Her case was now in the hands of investigators who immediately began looking for the person responsible for this horrendous crime. They searched high and low for any clues, but despite their efforts, they found nothing. As time passed, the case grew cold with no significant leads. Months passed with no progress, and this case became known as a cold case. Nearly a year later, on May 15, 1982, another woman went missing, Lauren Brovsky. Lauren, who had been at work, left to go home, but never made it back. Her family quickly reported her missing. Investigators found that Lauren had been abducted right outside her workplace, as all her belongings were left behind near the door, and the office door was still locked. This raised more questions than answers. How could someone kidnap her in broad daylight with no one seeing anything? Days, then weeks, passed with no clues. 5 months later, a body matching Lauren's description was found in a cemetery. She, too, had been beaten and abused, and her body showed signs of severe trauma. Once again, the same disturbing pattern emerged. Part of her body was missing. At this point, investigators realized they were dealing with a dangerous psychopath, someone who was committing the same gruesome crime repeatedly, removing body parts from his victims. Both Linda and Lauren had suffered the same fate, and the investigators feared this would continue unless they could catch the killer. Even with all this evidence, they were still unable to make any headway. No new leads surfaced, and the case remained unsolved. 2 weeks after Lauren's disappearance, another woman went missing. Sherry Mack. Sherry was with her brother and their parents when, after a disagreement with her brother, she was left standing alone on the street, waiting for her parents to pick her up. When they passed by, they didn't see her. She had vanished without a trace. After 4 months of searching, Sherry's body was discovered in a wooded area, severely decomposed. She too had been murdered and stabbed in the chest. The pattern continued. She had been subjected to the same brutal treatment as the others. About a week after Sherry's disappearance, a woman named Angel York came forward to report an incident. Angel had been abducted, but managed to escape. She told the police that one day, while walking down the street, she was grabbed by 2 men and forced into a red truck. They beat her severely until she lost consciousness, and the next thing she knew, she was able to escape. The poor woman passed away. After that, what did they say? They said, "Listen, we want to dismember you. Take this knife." They gave her a big knife. After she took the knife, they told her to cut. "Did you see what I told you?" They found the body severed. They asked her, "Please, cut a part off." The poor woman asked, "How?" They said, "Cut it so we don't kill you." She grabbed the tool and began to cut. Of course, there was bleeding, and she couldn't do it. She couldn't go on. It was something strange, something unimaginable. After they saw she couldn't continue, they ordered her to cut both of them. She could hardly manage to cut one. I swear, this situation was something bizarre. When they saw that she couldn't finish and was screaming, one of them hit her. Then, they tied her hands tightly and took the knife from her. One of them took over the task. He killed both of them swiftly. After he completed this horrendous act, he did even worse things I won't get into, but he abused her in ways that need no further detail. Then, after completing his vile acts, they wrapped her body with duct tape, especially focusing on the wound to stop the bleeding. She was in hell, no doubt. Once the tape was wrapped, the other one started the car and they sped off. The truck driver opened the door, grabbed her, and threw her out onto the street. She fell, weak and helpless, but somehow, miraculously, she survived. Despite everything they did to her, the woman lived. She was saved, treated, and eventually went to the police. I know that when something like this happens, it's clear that someone is behind it. When they enter the hospital, naturally, the police would want to know what happened. I don't know exactly what happened to her, but she did go to the police and reported everything. They asked, "Is it possible all this happened to you?" She said, "Please, we beg you, tell us about the men, their descriptions." She told them, "Honestly, there's nothing remarkable about them. They were just regular men." The police tried to gather any details from her, even the smallest ones, but they couldn't come up with much. The only clue they could confirm was that the truck they used was red. So, they connected this case to the others, noting that every victim had one part of their body removed. The difference in this case was that both of her parts were removed, unlike the others who only had one part severed. The police realized they were dealing with a psychopath. As we feared, until this person is caught, he will continue to commit such horrific crimes. After a while, in fact, on August 28, 1982, they discovered another woman's body, Sandra Delaware, near a riverbank. The police found that Sandra had suffered the same fate as the previous victims, tortured and abused. Her hands were bound, and she had been strangled with her own underwear. As expected, one part of her body had been severed, just like the others. A few days later, on September 8th, they found the body of a 31-year-old woman, Rose Davis, in an alley. Rose had also been killed in the same way, with similar mutilations. Then, on October 6th, a month after finding Rose, something unusual happened. The police discovered two men, aged 28 and 18, who had been shot. When they found them, they were still alive. The younger man, 18, survived, but the 28-year-old did not. After being treated, the 18-year-old was questioned. He said, "We were in the car when a man suddenly came up, shot at us, and ran away. The police couldn't get much out of him, and it was strange that these men were involved because the focus had been on female victims. How did these men fit into the story?" It turned out that the same person who committed the crimes against the women was also responsible for the shooting of these men. That very same day, October 6th, when the police found the two men, they discovered another woman at a railroad track. She had been badly injured and, like the others, had suffered the same fate. Miraculously, she was still alive. She was left on the tracks, probably hoping a train would run over her. The police arrived, and after saving her, she was taken to the hospital. When she regained consciousness, she remembered being abducted by four men in a red truck. They forced her to take large amounts of pills until she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was in a room with the four men, who tortured and raped her. The pain was so intense that she would lose consciousness, only to wake up again. Eventually, she passed out for good and was found later unconscious on the tracks. After recovering and being questioned, she provided the police with descriptions of the four men, one of whom had a more distinctive appearance. With this information, the police were able to trace one of the suspects, Robin Getch. They arrested him, but they had no solid evidence linking him to the crimes. It was a simple interrogation with no significant results, as he wasn't cooperating. Eventually, they released him, knowing that they would catch him later. They just had to wait and observe him. After they released him and started monitoring him 24/7, they noticed that Robin Gitch always, without fail, went to a specific hotel. This particular hotel, he was coming and going from constantly. And imagine what hotel it was. It was the same hotel where they found the first body I mentioned earlier, which was discovered behind the hotel in a field or some such place. Yes, the same hotel. Now, after investigators realized that Robin kept going to the hotel where Linda's body was found, they went straight to the hotel manager and began questioning him about Robin Gitch. The hotel manager said, "Robin is our favorite client. He's always here, and whenever he visits, he rents several rooms. Sometimes he rents one room, other times he rents another, and he always comes with 3 other men. He's always the 4th. Everything seemed fine until now. This girl said there were 4 men who assaulted her, and now Robin, with 3 others, is staying at this hotel. The investigators continued pressing the hotel manager, trying to extract more information. The manager then said, whenever he rents a room, they play music in it. He enjoys the music, even songs specifically related to Taif, as if it was tailored for him. The police then took down the names of the 3 other men who were with Robin and recorded their details. They thanked the manager and noted the names: Edward Spencer, Andrew Cockers, and Thomas Cockers. Thomas and Andrew were brothers, with Robin being the 4th. They arrested them all and began their interrogations. They pressured them heavily, but only Thomas confessed. Before he admitted anything, he made a request. He said, I will confess, but reduce my sentence. Don't give me the death penalty or a life sentence. He gave them conditions. If they agreed, he would tell them everything. The police told him, you have the green light. Go ahead, Thomas. Tell us what happened. So Thomas began. The 4 of us were part of a satanic cult, and we worship the devil. He also mentioned that in most of their crimes, whenever they kidnapped women, they took them to Robin's house, especially when Robin's wife wasn't at home. They would bring the women to Robin's house, where on the roof, he had set up a room like a temple, a satanic temple. They had a bed there for their victims, and that bed wasn't just any bed. It was a sacrificial bed. These 4 mentally disturbed men, whenever they kidnapped women, they would bring them to this room or temple and offer them as sacrifices to the devil. The 3 would torture, rape, abuse, and kill them, doing everything imaginable except Robin. Robin, the one who owned the house, was the one who would give the orders. He was the leader of this cult, the mastermind behind it all. He would stand in front of them, reading satanic incantations while the others followed through with the sacrifice. Can you imagine? He'd recite these incantations, and they'd carry out the horrific acts. Now, during these rituals, they would proceed to the next stage, cutting off the left part of the woman's body, her intimate part. After removing it, they would do something unspeakable, engaging in a vile act with the wound. Then they would cut the piece into 4 parts, share it amongst themselves, and eat it. Yes, they would eat it. I know, this is beyond disturbing. These men were beyond psychotic. They had crossed all boundaries of human decency. I'm telling you, this kind of depravity is unimaginable. Even in a psychiatric hospital, these patients would be shocked by their behavior. After completing the sacrifice, they would dispose of the body, either by killing it or discarding it. Thomas confessed everything, explaining that Robin didn't actually do the deeds but merely directed the others. It was Robin who commanded everything. He was the cult's leader. So, after all the investigations, it was decided that Thomas would be sentenced to 70 years in prison, with the possibility of parole in 2017. However, in 2019, Thomas was released, and he is still free to this day. As for Andrew, Thomas's brother, and Edward, they were sentenced to death by lethal injection. In 1999, Andrew's execution was carried out, but Edward's sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. He would die in prison. Now let's talk about the big fish, Robin, the leader of this satanic cult. He was sentenced to 120 years in prison, with the possibility of parole in 2042. At that time, he will be around 88 or 89 years old, assuming they agree to parole him. Even if they release him, he will be an old man and likely be of no use to anyone, and they'll send him straight to the grave. But the story doesn't stop there. According to Thomas's confessions, Robin kept a box at his house. Inside this box were 15 body parts of women. Yes, 15 pieces of these body parts, parts that he and his cult had severed. Most of the victims of this cult were drug addicts and sex workers, and no one cared when they disappeared. But they weren't the only ones. There were also regular girls who were caught up in their depravity. As for the number of victims, we can't be sure, but it's clear that they were many. The body parts, those 15 parts they kept in the box, suggest a very large number of victims. And as I told you, they would often take the left side of the body and keep it for their sick rituals. And let's rewind a bit. Before the executions took place, while they were still in prison, another woman's body was found. She had experienced the same horrors that the other victims did. The cult members were already locked up, so who could have done this? Was there another psychopath out there who had learned from them and continued their path? In March 1999, a man named David Gitch was arrested for the first-degree murder of a woman, along with 2 other men. Now, who is David Gitch? Turns out he is Robin Gitch's son. This is the second generation of this sick family. Maybe David followed in his father's footsteps, committing the same crimes. David was arrested, and he was sentenced to 45 years in prison. In 2044, he will be eligible for parole. As for the two men who were with him, one received a 30-year sentence, and the other was sentenced to 60 years. Thank goodness they caught David before he could turn into another version of his father and continue the cycle of abuse. And with that, we come to the end of today's story. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us. And we'll see you next time with another story. Goodbye.